Welcome to Meet the Ocean. I am your host, Paul North, and today we are going back to Alaska, where there is water, whales, kayaks, and close encounters. But before we get to exploring, there are some things worth celebrating. The first is that Meet the Ocean has been selected by the Webby Awards as a top 5 podcast for the science and education category. This is a big deal. This is international, and technically speaking, it's a battle for the best of the internet. I'm gonna get beat up. And, don't worry. Our competition, it's not all that impressive. It's just CNN and Star Talk. You know, the one with the mustachioed physicist, Neil deGrasse Tyson. There's also the You Are Not So Smart podcast and the Duolingo Spanish podcast. That's the green owl that teaches everyone foreign languages. El mar es una maravilla. Now, we're just an itty-bitty invertebrate-sized nonprofit, but we are shoulder to shoulder with these educational giants, and we couldn't be prouder about it. Next up, I went diving in Alaska for, 5 weeks straight. Why did I do such a thing, it was called? So that I could share it with you. And I will be doing so in a presentation on May 18th, virtually, with the Oregon Museum of Science and Industry, also known as OMSI. The talk is titled, The Great Alaskan Invertebrate Safari. Now, remember, we might be one of the best of the internet, but we still need your help. Meet the Ocean is a listener-supported 501c3 nonprofit. You can always find more podcasts, underwater creatures, and ways to donate on our website, meettheocean.org. And now, on to our show. Every Alaskan has a story. In fact, they probably have a couple. Put a camera in their hand, and, things tend to get a little adventurous. My friend, Sean Nielsen, is a father, photographer, and overall, a big fan of the creatures who live in the salt water. Before a virus got a hold of the world, Sean and I were with his family in Mexico aboard the National Geographic Venture, photographing pelicans and sea lions, and occasionally petting baby gray whales. It's a thing. But this story takes place in Sean's home, which, by all accounts, is essentially Glacier Bay National Park. That's in Alaska. And when you're in Alaska, sometimes the stories find you.
I'm Sean Nielsen, and this is Meet the Ocean Encounter.
Meet the Ocean.
I have the privilege of getting to live in a beautiful place, Southeast Alaska. I live in the community of Gustavus, which is the gateway community to Glacier Bay National Park. Glacier Bay is an incredible place, really diverse biologically, beautiful mountains rising to over 15,000 feet with glaciers pouring down from those mountains and tumbling into the sea. Many visitors come here on cruise ships and tour boats and occasionally kayaks to witness all these amazing events and critters. People are specifically looking for humpback whales, which is the subject of this story. I will begin this story with a proverb. It goes, "Let sleeping dogs lie." And this refers to, at least back to the 14th century, to guard dogs. And the basic meaning is that you shouldn't disturb something because you might regret the results. Well, in this story, the proverb takes on a more literal meaning. My friend Julie and I were kayaking in a remote part of Glacier Bay. It's called Wilderness Waters, and these are waters that enjoy extra protection, and you can't take any vessel in there with a motor. And so kayakers go back there and they can really enjoy the solitude, and I think the animals must appreciate that as well. When we were back in there paddling for several hours, we began to hear the blow of a humpback whale. Just one blow, occasionally, not very quick together. It sounded like it must have just been one animal. It was so still back there we could hear a humpback blow for miles away. Eventually we rounded a corner and came into an area where we could see the blow, but it was still so far away that we could see the blow off in the distance. It wasn't until a few seconds later that we could actually hear it. So we paddled a little bit closer and moved in the direction of the whale. We didn't want to get too close, but it was very interesting. I had actually never seen a whale exhibiting this behavior, which was sleep. It was a sleeping whale, and the behavior that biologists refer to a sleeping whale like this as logging, because the animal looks like a horizontal log just floating in the water, just bobbing up and down very slowly as the animal inhales and exhales. So it was interesting. We decided to get a little bit closer and paddled up. I had a new telephoto lens that I was trying out, and I took a few shots off in the distance of its dorsal fin. It was a bit of a unique dorsal fin, kind of hook-shaped. I remember that, and then I put the camera back in my deck bag and just enjoyed the serene setting. Fortunately, I occasionally keep a journal, and I had so for this account, and so I will tell the crux of this story straight from reading right out of my journal. We were both a little surprised when it woke from a peaceful slumber and dove. I remember that we were closer than I thought. When it went down, I pulled out my camera to be ready for maybe a tail shot or something. It was calm and peaceful. The water was quiet. Julie and I just sat there. In an instant, the calm was violently broken as I saw the nose of the whale pierce through the flat water. I sat there in shock and disbelief that the whale was breaching from a distance of about 20 feet, about the length of my kayak. The image that is stuck in my brain is of the whale's underside with the white pleats gleaming in bright, foamy white water streaming down from the top to bottom in an arcing cascade. I felt completely minuscule as my neck craned up to follow the whale's ascent. I felt insignificant and humble. I felt the true power and might of that creature. It seemed to happen so quickly, yet it lingered. It's difficult to put into words. It continued to rise until nearly its full mass cleared the surface of the water. Thankfully, it fell away from me, and not the other way, or it would have surely crushed me. The sound of it hitting the water was equally impressive as the sight. It boomed, and I prepared for the wave, my mouth still agape. My camera rested in my hands, frozen like the rest of my body. The wave hit me a second after it crashed back into the water. By working my hips, I avoided tipping or even being splashed. I felt immobilized. Julie yelled something like, "That's aggressive behavior, get out of there!" The whale bent around to my left and dove in the direction of Julie. I paused for a moment, let my camera dangle around my neck, and began paddling toward shore, which was the direction I was pointed. My tongue was bitter. The primal fear was there. Julie was back paddling to get away and repositioning herself. She then began to paddle towards me and shore. I couldn't speak for several minutes. I was too stunned. It almost didn't seem real. We kept looking back over our shoulders, waiting for subsequent breaches that never came. We simply saw it blowing and apparently feeding. I will never forget that moment. It was burned into my brain, as things tend to be when they're intense and fear-inducing. Since that encounter with the humpback whale, I've been privileged enough to see many whales breach in many different contexts, and the biologists tell us that although they can't know for sure either, there are several theories of what could possibly be the reasoning and motivation for breaching. It could include stunning or scaring prey. It could be to communicate with other whales. It could be to dislodge parasites from their skin. It could also be a simple form of play. We often observe breaching among humpback whale calves. It's also seen during courting. It could also be interpreted as a sign of other whales warning other animals about possible danger. I'll never know the exact reason why that whale breached at that time. Perhaps it didn't even know I was there. Perhaps it did. But I do know that the proverb, let sleeping dogs lie definitely also applies to humpback whales.
Meet the Ocean is produced by Paul North and Andrew Gettings, with sound design by me, Kelsey Anderson. Special thanks to Sean Nielsen for sharing his story. By the way, have you watched Meet the Ocean's film Winter in Antarctica yet? This combination of performance and conservation recently won at the Barcelona International Film Festival in the Best Short Documentary category. This performance for the planet has also placed at the Amsterdam World International Film Festival, the Los Angeles Indie Short Fest, the Los Angeles Independent Shorts Awards, and the Los Angeles Cinematic Film Festival. Phew, that's a lot. If you want to get your own front seat to this journey through the underwater ecosystems of Antarctica, you can purchase a tax-deductible ticket at winterinantarctica.com. We are a listener-supported nonprofit. You can find more podcasts, underwater creatures, and ways to donate to our educational outreach on our website, meettheocean.org. Subscribe to our podcast to never miss an episode. Support us on Patreon, and please rate and review us on whichever platform you choose to listen. Until next time, may the salt water be with you.